Marc-Vivien Foé was known as a tireless midfielder, powerful, disciplined, and endlessly committed. By 2003, he had already played in 3 World Cups, represented Cameroon over 60 times, and was trusted to control the middle of the pitch wherever he went, from France to England. On June 26, 2003, during the FIFA Confederations Cup semi-final against Colombia, nothing seemed unusual. Then, in the 72nd minute, with no contact and no warning, Foé collapsed near the center circle. At first, players thought he had slipped. Seconds later, the stadium fell silent. Doctors rushed in. CPR was performed on the pitch, then in the tunnel. The match continued, but football had already stopped. Marc-Vivien Foé died that day from a sudden cardiac collapse caused by hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a hidden heart condition that often shows no symptoms. After his death, teammates carried his legacy forward. Cameroon wore his number 17 in the final, and football began to change, with stronger focus on heart screening, defibrillators, and emergency response. Some moments don't just end a match, they change the game forever. Miklós Fehér was only 24, but he was already living the dream. A Hungarian international playing for Benfica, one of Europe's historic clubs. He wasn't a superstar, but he was respected for his work ethic, humility, and calm presence on the pitch. On January 25, 2004, Benfica were playing away against Vitória Guimarães. Late in the match, Fehér was shown a yellow card. He smiled, took a few steps back. Then, without warning, he fell straight backward onto the grass. At first, confusion, then panic. Medical staff rushed in as players realized this wasn't a normal collapse. Fehér was taken to hospital, but he never regained consciousness. The cause of death was cardiac arrest caused by an undiagnosed heart condition, something no one knew he carried. That image, a young player smiling seconds before collapsing, became one of football's most haunting memories. Sometimes the most frightening tragedies are the ones that give no warning at all. Antonio Puerta was Sevilla through and through, born in the city, raised by the club, and remembered for defining one of its greatest eras. On August 25, 2007, during a La Liga match, Puerta suddenly collapsed near the touchline. He briefly regained consciousness and walked off the pitch, leading many to believe the danger had passed. But inside the tunnel, everything changed. Puerta suffered repeated cardiac arrests, and doctors fought for days to save him. On August 28, Antonio Puerta died. The cause was recurrent cardiac arrests caused by a congenital heart condition, leading to multi-organ failure. His death shook Spanish football. Sevilla retired his number, and across the country, clubs accelerated the use of defibrillators and emergency medical protocols. Puerta's legacy wasn't only a goal, it was safer football. Phil O'Donnell was Motherwell's captain, a calm leader respected by teammates and fans alike. On December 29, 2007, during a league match, he collapsed on the pitch as he was being substituted. What first looked like a routine medical issue quickly turned serious. Despite rapid medical attention, O'Donnell died later that day. The cause was sudden heart failure. His death stunned Scottish football and served as another reminder that even experienced professionals can carry silent cardiac risks. Some moments leave a silence that never fully fades. Daniel Jarque was Espanyol's captain, respected, quiet, and deeply loyal to his club. He wasn't known for headlines, but for leadership and consistency. On August 8, 2009, during pre-season in Italy, Jarque was found dead in his hotel room. There had been no warning signs, no collapse on the pitch. The cause of death was sudden cardiac arrest, known as asystola, a complete stop of the heart's electrical activity. His death shocked Spanish football, and for many, it reinforced a frightening reality. Some heart conditions give no second chance. Robert Enke was Germany's national team goalkeeper and the first-choice keeper for Hannover 96. respected for his professionalism, discipline, and quiet leadership. From the outside, he seemed to have everything a footballer could want. But away from the pitch, Enke had been living with a long and very private struggle with depression. On November 10, 2009, Robert Enke took his own life. His death shocked the football world and changed the conversation forever. Mental health was no longer something to hide, but something football needed to acknowledge, understand, and support. Some battles aren't visible, and no one should have to face them alone. Christian Chucho Benítez was one of Ecuador's most loved strikers, explosive, instinctive, and feared in the penalty area. He had starred in Mexico, represented his country at World Cups, and in 2013 had just begun a new chapter, playing in Qatar. In July that year, Benítez suddenly fell seriously ill at home. He was rushed to hospital, but doctors were unable to save him. Christian Benítez died from acute heart failure caused by a sudden cardiac event. The news stunned Ecuador. Stadiums fell silent. Teammates collapsed in tears, and a nation mourned a player who was supposed to have many years still ahead of him. Sometimes, football doesn't get a goodbye. Cheick Tioté was known for his strength, intensity, and fearless style of play. He built his career at clubs like Twente, Newcastle United, and later Beijing Enterprises, earning respect wherever he played. On June 5, 2017, during a routine training session in China, Tioté suddenly collapsed in front of teammates. There had been no warning, no heavy contact. Despite immediate medical assistance, he could not be revived. Cheick Tioté died from a sudden cardiac arrest. Tributes poured in from across the football world for a player who gave everything, every time he stepped on the pitch. Davide Astori was known for his calm leadership and professionalism. A respected defender, he had played for clubs like Cagliari and Roma, and at the time of his death, he was the captain of Fiorentina. On March 4, 2018, just hours before a Serie A match, Astori was found dead in his hotel room in Udine. There had been no signs of distress, no warning to teammates or staff. Doctors later confirmed the cause was a sudden cardiac arrest. Linked to an undiagnosed heart condition, Italian football stood still. Matches were postponed and tributes poured in for a captain who led quietly and was gone far too soon. Emiliano Sala's story is one of football's most painful and unsettling tragedies, not just because of how he died, but because of how easily it might have been avoided. Sala was a late bloomer. He had fought his way up through French football and finally earned the biggest move of his career, a transfer from Nantes to Cardiff City in January 2019. There was urgency. Cardiff wanted him in England quickly, hoping he could be available for their next match. The flight arranged to bring him over was a small private aircraft, not a commercial flight. The same plane had flown earlier that day, and witnesses later described a loud bang during its previous journey. Despite this, the aircraft was not fully checked again before taking off for the return flight. On the night of January 21, 2019, Sala boarded the plane in Nantes. Before takeoff, he sent voice messages to friends. In one of them, he said he was scared. He described the plane as falling apart and joked nervously that if anything happened, they would be searching for him. Those messages would become chillingly prophetic. The plane disappeared over the English Channel. When the wreckage was eventually found, investigators made a critical discovery. Both Sala and the pilot had been exposed to carbon monoxide poisoning. The aircraft had a broken exhaust system, allowing toxic gases to leak into the cabin. Experts concluded that the pilot was likely incapacitated mid-flight, which explains why the plane entered a sudden, uncontrolled nose-down dive into the sea. This was not bad weather. This was not pilot error alone. It was a chain of negligence. The flight itself was later ruled illegal. The pilot was not licensed for commercial night flights, and the aircraft was improperly used. In 2023, David Henderson, the man who organized the flight, was sentenced to prison for arranging an illegal flight that endangered lives. He was not charged with murder, but with negligence that directly led to the crash. Emiliano Sala never played a single minute for Cardiff City. His final messages remain, not just as heartbreak, but as a warning. Sometimes tragedy isn't an accident. Sometimes it's the result of pressure, shortcuts, and decisions made too fast. José Antonio Reyes was born in Utrera, Seville, and from the moment he debuted for Sevilla's first team at just 16, his talent was undeniable. He became part of Arsenal's legendary Invincibles season, later winning major European titles with Atletico Madrid and Sevilla, building a career filled with trophies and unforgettable moments. On June 1, 2019, Reyes was driving on the A376 motorway near Utrera, close to his hometown. Investigators determined his Mercedes was traveling at very high speed when it suffered a rear tire blowout while overtaking another vehicle. The car lost control, veered off the road, and caught fire. José Antonio Reyes died at the scene, along with his cousin, Jonathan Reyes. He left behind his wife and 3 children. For Spain, it was the loss of a decorated footballer. For Utrera, it was the loss of a son. Christian Atsu was known for his pace, humility, and relentless energy on the wing. He represented Ghana's national team, played in the Premier League with Newcastle United, and in 2023 was playing for Hatayspor in Turkey. On February 5, 2023, Atsu scored a dramatic late free kick for his club, a winning goal that sent fans into celebration. Less than 24 hours later, disaster struck. A massive earthquake hit southern Turkey in the early hours of February 6th. The building where Atsu was staying collapsed. Search and rescue efforts continued for days, with hope that he might still be alive. But on February 18th, it was confirmed that Christian Atsu had died beneath the rubble. The cause of death was trauma from building collapse following the earthquake. He left behind his wife and 3 children. One night, he was a match winner. Days later, the football world was mourning him. Diogo Jota's rise was built step by step. He began at Paços de Ferreira, earned a move to Atletico Madrid, found his breakthrough in England with Wolverhampton Wanderers, and eventually became a key figure at Liverpool, scoring in Champions League nights and Premier League title races. With Portugal, he represented his country at major tournaments, admired for his intelligence, movement, and relentless work rate. In early July 2025, during the off-season, Jota was in Spain, traveling by car with his younger brother, André Silva. Shortly after midnight, 40 a.m., on July 3rd, their vehicle was driving along the A52 motorway near Cernadilla, in Zamora province. While overtaking at high speed, the car suffered a rear tire blowout, lost control, left the roadway, and caught fire. Emergency services arrived quickly, but both brothers died at the scene. Diogo Jota was 28 years old. He left behind his wife and 3 children. Tributes poured in from clubs, teammates, and supporters across continents. For days, stadiums observed moments of silence. The entire football world was mourning Diogo Jota. Thank you for watching. These stories remind us how fragile life can be, even at the highest level. Let's never forget these bright people.